Okay, this is going to be the fifth, I believe, video in a series of, I think, 60 minutes, and we'll add to that as we go. I'm going to point out here, once again, we're keeping this relatively, it may not seem simple when you're trying to run Inventor, but we're trying to keep it pretty straightforward here, looking at the basics of going from Autocad and Autocad blocks into SketchUp, making parts, and then making assemblies from parts. I will point out that the original linkage problem we did was really the way, if you're going to go from AutoCAD into Inventor, that really going to work. You're going to work with sketch blocks and then make parts and from one kind of flat assembly. I had a student ask the other day why you would draft a circle and extrude it as opposed to drawing a cylinder. Going to programs like this is the reason why you draft flat and then extrude, revolve, and the like. So that said, I'm going to open up here one of the parts. If you remember, you're going to have to kind of know where your stuff is at. And I'm going to open up, going through here, kind of the gusset plate that I have drafted in the past, started in AutoCAD, brought it in, and we'll take a look at what's there in the file. And then we're going to look around the browser here for a little bit to discover, like we will in Revit and like we have already in Civil 3D, Architectural Desktop, and the like, how the browser and many of the kind of the tools there work. And so if you notice here, because I was working on this a little bit, once again you have this kind of same general interface here. You in the end still have this interface that you know from AutoCAD. In other words, you can go ahead and do your orbit tool, right? You can do all kinds. Remember, F6 is the home key, I believe, but not F6 gets you generally home if you're in the sketch mode. And I actually have a hole here put in, which we're going to see is going to become pretty key later. So I'm going to go ahead again, turn this off, close the wheel, and then start looking around what kind of things we have here. In what we found and discovered in class is the browser. So we're turning that off, turning it back on. Of course, we have the navigation bar, turning that back on. We have the status bar, which is someplace down here in the bottom, status bar, and it comes across there. And we have the ribbon, of course. Now over here on the left, you're going to see that this is called the Gusset part, and you can push out, like we've learned before, each of these kind of drill down menus. And then you can push them all the way out so you can kind of see what's there in each of these kind of these folders. And what I'm pointing out here is actually this one here, which is that you can right click on any of these and change the visibility. And that's where, if you lose track of where is 0, 0 on a drawing, that's how you can find it. So for instance here, I'm just going to turn on right click visibility, and all of a sudden I have the YZ plane kind of just kind of laid in there, the YZ plane. And I can right click on that and change the visibility, and I have then the XZ plane. And if you notice, what I did at some point here is I moved this gusset plate so that it was at the 0, 0. So I'm going to try to, there's going to be all kinds of different ways to move things, but I'm going to show you how you could move it in and out and back and forth. Not by so much using the planes here, right click, turning off the visibility, right click, turning off the visibility, and I'm going to just turn on right click, turn on the visibility X-axis, the visibility the Y-axis, and I really don't need the Z-axis here. And I'm going to remember that I can kind of go, if I really want to get back to the kind of the view straight there, I can always go back into the, right, I can go back and double click if I walk into the sketch mode, and now I'm in the sketch mode. And that's where, in effect, you might want to very often be taking and grabbing everything and doing some sort of move command, which you see is right here. So I can, this point you see is that you get the sense of some exact input here. So I do the move here in the modify area, and this is in the sketch mode, the 2D mode, if you would. And I'm going to go ahead and select a base point, if I would. And now I can give it precise input. And I'm going to point here. This is going to be very different from AutoCAD, but not so different. Instead of using ats and the like, you can actually use, this is a toggle switch for either delta or just pure information. Delta or pure information. And this one here, precise redefine, and then reset to origin. So basically, very often what we're going to see is we're going to use the delta or not. In this case, I'll turn off the delta, and I am going to once again pick my base point there, and my delta, I'm in my delta, so I can change my x and maybe 100. I'm hitting here. I don't once again forget to turn on the keyboard. Well, sooner or later I'm going to get a keyboard that I don't have to do this each time, but I have the ability when this is clicked on to give deltas, and in this case of course deltas are going to be the same as absolutes because we're still going from 0, 0. So I'm going to put in 100 here, $100, tab, and I'll go with 50 in the Y, and you see it moved it out there, and I didn't finish it and didn't hit apply, so I'll try it one more time. I've selected everything. I'm going to use the move tool. I'm going to use my base point, selected it there, and I am going to do precise input delta. I'm going to go 100 in the X, tab, 50 in the Y, and hit done. Now somehow, right, it is not actually collecting, so I'm going to try this one more time. Go ahead and move it, and you see I can actually move the grips around, move them around, try to go here. It's probably been locking it. It wants to go back to 0, 0, so I'm going to go ahead, double click here, take me back there, and we'll try it one more time. We're going to move base point. We're going to select our objects, which is everything, grab our base point, and this time we're going to give it a delta of -50 and -25. And say done, and it's still, actually it is actually moving. I'm going to try it one last time. I think it has been moving, and so we're going to grab it, do the move command, my base point here this time, and I'm going to make it a delta of -100 and hit, and I'm moving my up and down. If I click there, it's actually doing it and moving it. So depending on what you're doing, you can control the X and or the Y. And so a final bit here I'll show you once again is I can grab here, and you see the solid, you're kind of grabbing the sketch. It's really the sketch no matter what you're doing. You grab it. We're going to do the move, grab a precise input here, and this time we're going to use the toggle off and tell it to go exactly to 0 X, tab, 0 in the Y, and hit a return there, and it moves back. So that is how to do precise input within. And in the fact, we can then finish. You remember you just hit right click, finish sketch, right, and we have there. The final thing that is going to be very useful on these parts now is to go ahead and make quite good use of creating points, planes, and coordinates. So we're going to try to set up an odd coordinate system if we can right now, and this is where you're going to really do a lot of matching of parts together. So I'm going to hit the coordinate there, and I see it there. It kind of wants to go to a particular spot. In this case, specify x-axis. You see I've specified there. This is the one that I don't quite have down, but if we say done here, hopefully we have the coordinate system put in. Once again, this coordinate system will show up over here to the left, and you'll be able to see that coordinate system in the part. So I don't see a coordinate system here. Let me go and set another one here. We will play around with a coordinate system just like the points. I'm going to grab there. It really needs to grab a point on the part, and now you see there's a coordinate system right there. So it kind of shows the coordinate system as it's laid in, and you can change the visibility of it. Right click, change the visibility, right click, visibility, right click. right click, change the visibility, and so later on you may or may not see it. So those are a couple of the things you're going to use when you try to match things up. The last one I was trying to put here is this kind of, I'll just put an arbitrary point here, put a point, a working point right there at some particular spot, and it might be useful. Thanks for listening. We'll keep going from here.